We're all owned by the Syndicate, body and soul. Or should I just say body?
Hello, filthy movie lovers, something weirdos, and anti-criterion bros, to the 11th episode of the Sin Syndicate, the only podcast that knows a topless knife fight is the only way to settle an argument over a man, and has bathed in the purifying waters of Topanga Canyon. My name is Gentry Austin, writer and researcher, and I'm here with my co-host, Casey Scott. And today we're going to look at the Ramrodder, a 1969 Nudie Western directed by Ed Forsyth and shadow produced by the one and only David F. Friedman. But first, we have good friend of the pod, Alex DeSanto, with us again, and he's going to give us a recap of the very special Andy Milligan screenings at the Tribeca Film Festival earlier this month. So let's start with you, Alex. I can't see the bottom of the frame, but I hope you're wearing the Jimmy McDonough gifted Milligan cowboy boots right now.
They're beside me. They're too big for me. They're actually too big. They're too big, and they're all form fitted and things because they're a little rough and tumble. They're a little rough and tumble.
Did you hear this story, Casey, or see this video?
No, I've heard nothing about this. This is brand new to me.
All right. Go ahead, Alex.
Okay. Should we lead up to it? Okay. Should we lead? Oh, well, I'm holding them anyway. So, Casey, you might remember in the biography the part where Jimmy was going back to Andy's hometown of St. Paul, Minnesota, and he was wearing a pair of boots that Andy had made for him. And in a very haunting twist of fate, as Jimmy is walking up to Andy's childhood home, one of the heels on this boot gives out, and he face plants into the concrete. A sign from Milligan up above. Don't go there, babe. Don't go there, babe. Well, these are the boots, the titular boots that Milligan made for McDonough, looking a little bit like petrified wood at this date and time. Yes, which is part of his opening ceremony during the second night. I can only partially cover some of this because I was not there for the first big premiere screening, the documentary. I was there for the second night. Missed out on that opening Q&A with a lot of the other Milliganites who I did not realize were going to be there. Some people kept on showing up like last minute. I did not realize that Peter Rattray and people were going to be showing up. I was on the plane going, damn it, I didn't pack this one sheet. I didn't pack this and this and that. So I was there for the second screening of the documentary, which was great because beforehand got to meet up with Sean Langrick and see him for the first time ever, which is really lovely, and Joe Rubin as well. Really fantastic to finally be able to see him after admiring his work for so long. Yeah, then of course screening happened in a Q&A afterwards, which went by without a hitch. I don't think anyone was filming it though. It's not going to end up anywhere. Sorry to say. I don't think it's around. I think the first night was. The first night was a big Q&A with all the actual like Milligan alumni there. Hope Stansbury, Natalie Rogers, John Borski. It was, Jerry Giacuzzo. It was like a who's who. Second night was just me, Grayson, and Josh for that. And thankfully the audience got the documentary pretty well. I was a little stressed as to like how people were going to like take this even afterwards. Why does Andy still matter? Did you not just see the movie? Do you not just see it? But they got it pretty damn well, thankfully. That was mostly it for the first night.
Well, how did your appearance go in the documentary? Were you happy with it? with the quotes that they used and the footage?
Yes. I mean, no complaints.
Okay.
It's just like, okay, there's me up on
Because, you don't know what they're going to use, right?
Okay.
So it's like
yeah, absolutely. I
surprise.
was absolutely a little bit concerned as to what was going to, as to what nuggets of information they were going to pull up in there. But, no, I have no complaints. I'm glad some of the things they cut out, honestly, just for timing and things like that. I was like, okay, good, smart. Though apparently, hopefully, the Blu-ray is hopefully gonna have a lot of additional footage and things. I don't know yet, but my fingers are crossed that we'll still get some great nuggets, even for people who like us, who know Milligan so well. There's still some really good nuggets in this documentary and things. Like the one thing I will give away, the only one thing, I'll save everything else for the doc, but the apartment that Jerry has his interview filmed at, that was the very same apartment that he and Andy lived in and partially shot Vapors at.
Oh.
That's the only nugget I'll give you. I was like, oh wow, that's so cool. Mm-hmm. So you go back to the trailer, that apartment behind Jerry is the apartment from Vapors.
Yeah, they haven't announced the Blu-ray yet. I'm surprised, but I assume it's coming.
Probably, no. Yeah, they're probably working on extras and things like that as well. Who knows? I do not know if the Blu-ray is going to be, if it's going to be, the doc and then the two films all in one package, the doc and then the two films separately. We'll have to see. We'll just have to see, but...
Maybe that's what they're waiting on. They want to figure out how they're going to present it first before they make an announcement. Makes sense.
Yeah, possibly. Just getting a bit of an idea for what would be the most feasible, I want to say. Because, Kiss Me looks great and fine. Degenerates is visually a very rough film with all its burned-in subtitles and things like that. It's all there and in focus and stuff, but, it's not stellar in terms of quality.
Well, so which one's better quality? Kiss Me?
Kiss Me's better because that was a very pristine print. Degenerates was it had obviously been projected quite a few times during its life. There were a few missing frames and things like that, in addition to some of the cuts it got in this version too, because it's slightly cut.
And I know this is a difficult question, but which one did you like better?
Ooh, okay. See, that's really hard because probably, honestly, I'm going to be really offensive here because it's not the more Milligan of the two. I probably like Kiss Me a bit better, but they both have their own qualities about them. You see, Kiss Me is a great movie. It's very different. It behaves quite differently from quite a few other Milligan films, only because he didn't write it. So, it's pacing wise in terms of scripting, it doesn't play out like a regular Milligan film. It has some actually really funny moments. There's some jokes. There's one or two jokes in it. It breaks the fourth wall at one point in a really hilarious moment in time. And so there's not a lot of those intensive lugubrious monologues and lots of asking of how each other's mother is and things like that. But thankfully it was written by Joe Bush, who did know Andy quite well and also wrote Compass Rose. So there's still a lot of Milliganisms in it and embedded into the script. There's still a lot of yelling. It's still extremely hateful. Natalie, oh my God, Jean is one of my new absolute favorite Milligan characters. She's just an unstoppable bitch on wheels. Oh my goodness. If you think Martha in Virginia Woolf can hold her liquor, goodness Christ, you haven't met Jean. So it's different, but it's also still a very good, sharp film. It just might be a little bit off-putting at first, only because it's just not his writing. Everything else, it's all him, everything else wise, but it's just not his writing. So the dialogue and things can come off a bit differently, but it's really good though. It was really good. And the audience did receive it quite well. The gags landed and things like that. Degenerates is a lot more Milligan, though it's actually pretty well paced. It's very dreamlike, very tight and short. The only thing missing from this version is the sex scene, so we're not actually missing any expository plot really. But
okay,
that's a wonderfully little filthy movie. I mean, right off the bat, because of its location and things like that, it has a very effective location in the abandoned house in Woodstock. Yeah. And it's a lot more It's like I've said, it's a kind of a darker, more haunting than Seeds, in that it's a lot more it's not as explosive as some of Andy's other things. It's a bit more subtle and quiet in how some of people's baggage arises to the surface. Like, there's a lot of like freakouts and things like that, but people aren't like, unlike Seeds, people aren't like screaming why they're fucked up. You kind of have to like read into it a bit more, which is a very interesting, a different dynamic for Andy, and it makes the film quite effective, especially Brierly Lee as Violet. Oh, she's fantastic. She makes the movie. All around. Everyone's good, but Brierly Lee as Violet just makes the film. It would not be as good as it is without her. And it's not as creepy it's not as intensive in some of the ways that like things like Seeds are, but there are some quite harrowing sequences interspersed throughout.
Yeah, so Hope Stansbury was at the screening. Do you know how she responded to seeing this on screen? Had she seen it before?
Stansbury. Yeah, so Hope Stansbury and Laura Cunningham, who played Lily, she's credited as Laura Weiss in the movie, was also there. She was so funny. She was just practically just pulled off the street to be in this movie. She never wanted to be in a film and never was ever again. So that was really a hilarious experience for her. Hope had seen it once at their apartment when Andy was editing the film, and that had been the only time that she had seen it. These movies just weren't her thing, let's just say. Like, she likes to act and things like this, but Hope was more so for the stage and things like that. So being out in filthy Woodstock, playing an animalistic creature was not exactly
wasn't a fan.
Cup of tea. Yeah. Hope is an absolutely like lovely, incredible person. She's given me so much fantastic info about Milligan and things like that. She's such a fascinating woman. But like the film's just, this was just not her thing. She did it for Andy, and that that was pretty much that. So that was kind of like the overall air. It's just, you know, I liked a lot of this stuff. I didn't really like. I wasn't a big fan of doing, you know, some of these and things like that. It wasn't a very glamorous role either. She's you know, she's a lot bigger on her role in Depraved, where she plays a sophisticated like lesbian model, other than the dirty, shrieking, animalistic girl out in the woods throwing rocks from the shed roof at people.
Yeah, I could see her being more. Yeah, like you said, like she's more into the theatrical aspect of acting, like delivering lines and dialogue, and not so much like rolling around, getting messy in the woods. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. She did this for Andy and things like that, but this was not remotely a very her thing at all. Which is that's totally cool. I was like, I hope it's okay. It's okay. She seemed guilty. I was like, no, it's all good. And Laura, funny enough, hilariously, she actually wrote two really great memoirs and dedicated a significant chapter on one of them to the making of The Degenerates. So there's a lot of great tea on that production. And what's lovely is that she went into it thinking that she was horrible. She remembers being Andy did not like her. Andy did not like her during the shoot because she was not remotely experienced and things like that. But she came off actually as pretty good. I think the best thing that again, I also was great to hear from Peter Rattray, who had also never seen Kiss Me, was, I wasn't actually that bad. Because they do occasionally like enter these things with trepidation. So like the greatest thing that's at least the number one thing I like to hear is, I wasn't that bad actually. Oh, okay. Oh, nice. Because there's always just like, you could practically read it. Like, what did I do? Like, what did I commit? Like, what did I commit to? Like way back when, especially because like Peter had only seen the really salacious stills on the theater front and things like that. So, both Laura and Peter's responses pretty much were, okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah.
Have you read that chapter that she wrote?
Oh yeah. It's full of, oh God. That was
How long is it?
It was an insane shoot. The chapter is about the first chapter, because actually she goes back to the location. She moved 20 minutes driving distance from the house later on in her life. First chapter about the making of it's around 10 pages. And then she actually, decades later, returns to the house, which was still standing in 2000, but it has definitely crumbled by now, because upon walking into one of the, just touching one of the walls, it completely disintegrated under her touch. So
okay.
I think it's probably a heap in the abandoned meadow somewhere. But yeah, she had like a memory like a steel trap. Like funniest one was that the way she finally managed to get paid was that she stood outside of Andy and Jerry's apartment and screamed her head off until Andy came out and paid her $200. Because he didn't pay the people for Naked Witch and Degenerates. Other people remembered not being paid. I was like, Laura, do you remember getting paid? And she was like, it took some effort, but yeah.
Well, I asked how long it was because it'd be cool if they could reprint that in like the liner notes for when it comes out. If it's not too long, that's something you can broach.
It's definitely.
You can ask the Severin people if they'd shell out a few bucks to get that reprinted.
Possibly, who knows?
Yeah.
But
I mean, I'd like to read it.
We'll have to find out. Oh yeah, I can send you a PDF. But yeah, a lot. It was an insane, hectic shoot. Milligan having people trapped in an abandoned house in the middle of the woods with no heat, no running water in the middle of summer. Yeah, it was kind of a shit show.
Well, the funny thing is, Andy's not really. Andy was never a country boy either, so I'm sure he was incredibly uncomfortable out there too, right?
I mean, I guess, but he got the best like room in the place and things like that. He and Jerry and stuff, No, I don't think anyone was having too much fun during the making of it. Absolutely not. Like, oh my God, it was in the middle of the summer. You were getting constantly bitten by mosquitoes. You only bathed. Your bathing was in a swimming hole near the farm, and that was how you had to wash up and things like that. And also, by the way, people were so miserable. People were constantly liaisoning with each other in the middle of the night, and the house was so goddamn creaky that was keeping you up at it during the middle of the night as well. Your fellow cast members trying to blow off steam in the next room. Tensions got kind of intense, like at least a weekend. And things like that. They had to eat so much rhubarb only because it was growing on the property in absolute profusion. So Hal Sherwood was just constantly cooking rhubarb dishes in the awful like wood stove. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. They weren't told. They were told that they were going to a rustic farmhouse. They did not really realize what the gravity of the word rustic is in this. Like, it's shocking how much glass is still in the windows of this house when you see the movie.
Well, any last thoughts, Alex? I know you could talk forever about this experience. I'm just glad you were able to get out there.
I could, yeah. I didn't even mention that went to Phelps' place and things like that. Like, there's a lot of other things that we could go in, but it really was incredible.
Alex went out and recreated a photo from Flesh Pot out at Phelps' place.
And if anyone is willing to pool in some money, Phelps' place may be for sale. So anyone wants to hit me up, get a weirdo vacation home on Staten Island. It's looking pretty wonderfully decrepit.
All right. What's your email again? Put your email out there. We'll email you.
Okay. Let's start the collection now.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again, Alex.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Enjoy
till the next
Ramrodder,
time,
folks.
Yes.
Bye.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
How's your week been?
Interesting. It's been fine. No complaints.
Yeah. I've had some extended family in, so yeah, it's been a little wild for me.
They're still there. Oh, okay.
No, they're gone now, but they've been in all week. Yeah. I've had some sister-in-laws in town and their family, and I was able to make some time for some Nudie Western action here.
I was gonna say,
you know it.
your dirty little secret.
Yes,
away from the family.
And the thing is, like, I always like doing these because they send me on so many interesting paths. Like
this
I
one
like to
in particular.
Yeah, so like Ramrodder is, I think, within the sexploitation genre, we can consider it its own little naughty Western subgenre. So, of course, I have to watch some other ones that I haven't seen. I've seen the big ones, The Scavengers and Hotspur.
Yeah, those are, like, the two big ones.
Two biggest ones. But, of course, I have to watch the other double feature, which is on the Something Weird disc, is Revenge of the Virgins.
Oh, yeah. Not good.
Yeah, I had to sit through that.
Terrible. Really bad. I'm surprised they didn't pair it with Brand of Shame, actually. I think that really doesn't make any sense to me why it wasn't paired with that. I have no idea.
Yeah, Ghost of
I should
Mike
ask Lisa
Rainey.
at one point.
What's the
Yeah,
connective
I know
tissue
it's
there
like
other than
that
being
they're
a Western?
nudie
Yeah.
westerns, but one is in black and white and a decade earlier. And
Yes.
yeah, I feel like Brand of Shame was around the same time. Both had Marsha Jordan.
Yep.
I hate Brand of Shame, but it would have made a more suitable double feature,
Yeah,
in my
it would.
opinion.
Yeah, Revenge of the Virgins is interesting just to see, a decade earlier, they were making naughty westerns still, but they're in like the
Right.
nudie cutish subgenre still. It's very sexless.
Right.
It's just
Well, it's
like,
even before. Well, I think the history between that is I think it was shot in 59 and then it wasn't released until 62, maybe, or 61, because
Yeah.
I think all the nude stuff was added later. And I
Yeah,
think it
you
was
can tell.
potentially to cash in on like Russ Meyer's Wild Gals of the Naked West, which is also terrible.
Yeah.
So, for Russ Meyer, not good. So, yeah, it's not my favorite subgenre,
yeah.
but this is probably this is one of my favorites, one of my handful of favorites in this little subgenre.
Yeah, and like a peek behind the curtain, when we first started this podcast, we were kind of brainstorming ideas of movies and themes. And I know one of the first ones that I put on there was like a naughty Western themed episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you were kind of balked at it a little bit. And I can kind of see why, because there's not that many good ones.
No, a lot of them are terrible because it's tough. I mean, when you think about Westerns and you think about the women in Westerns, and considering sexploitation films are about women about presenting women in sexy situations. Like, so you have these women that are typically in like Victorian era costumes playing like in a brothel in the Old West, which is like such a tired thing in all of these films. They're always hookers and it's always a brothel. And it's just, the guys are gross. It's just like, I don't know, making something sexy out of the nasty, dirty Old West is kind of like trying to make something sexy out of like, concentration camps for like Love Camp 7. It's like, I don't know what this is, but it's for somebody. It's a very, very specific audience that I don't understand. I think in the hands of good filmmakers that are trying to do something interesting with them, then they can be good. We're not going to get anything like a McCabe and Mrs. Miller, where it's kind of like a Western that isn't really a Western. And this one actually does something really interesting in that it doesn't take place in like a town or with like a saloon and a brothel. It takes place out in the middle of nowhere, mostly shot outdoors, has, Native Americans, which are a bunch of white people in brownface, which is not great, obviously, but, at least it's trying something different. No matter how problematic that is now, they're trying something different, which I have to give them credit for.
I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise that sexploitation eventually did Westerns because, Westerns have been around as long as film has been around. There's been Westerns. Yeah. But it is interesting to see, the Western, naughty Westerns kind of followed the whole sexploitation trend as well, where it's like I said earlier, there's those nudie cutie Westerns. Then there's this, which is kind of a roughy Western. And then, half a decade later, you get hardcore Westerns.
Yeah. You have like a Dirty Western and Sweet Savage, which is god-awful. Yeah.
Yeah. Like legitimate hardcore, Westerns, which is like, Western, you cannot kill the Western. It's going to be around 100 years after we're gone.
It's kind of, because I think they're cheap to make as long as you have like a location that you can convincingly pass off as like a period location. And I think in that way they can sometimes be ageless because they're typically set in like a nondescript 1800s period. Yeah, I mean they're kind of it's easy to pull one off with limited funds. I think
you get horses,
and that's why we see like the Wicked. Like the Wicked Die Slow, like going back to like Hennigar, who made the Wicked Die Slow after doing all these sex films. It's like because it didn't cost that much to do a Western. It's cheap.
Yeah, if Herschel Gordon Lewis made one, then you could make one for cheap.
Right, exactly.
Linda and Abilene
I feel
is
like,
pseudo Western.
Which is terrible. I totally forgot about that one. And I wrote the liner notes for that release. I forgot it. I even saw all three of those films. They're not good.
Well, then again, like even that film has a connective tissue to Ramrodder because there is some debate whether or not some of this was shot at Spahn Ranch, the Ramrodder that is.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll talk about that. But
Yeah.
let's talk about the director first, because this
Sure.
is another kind of hard one for me to research. I don't know what you know about Ed Forsyth. I know we talked a little bit about there being some confusion about another Ed Forsyth that was a Canadian director, or he at least directed Canadian films.
I was able to do a little more digging into this, and this is thankfully not a War of the Roses situation. I think
Yeah.
I've been able to confirm that they are the same person. Ed Forsyth and
really?
Edward J. Forsyth. Yes. And actually, Ed Forsyth, he used the name Edward J. Forsyth on this film, which was called I'm Gonna Get You, Elliot Boy, which was shot in Canada. And then they came back to the Hollywood to edit it, and he edited it. So he was known primarily, he did most of his work was as an editor. So then I took a look I was like, oh wait, who edited the Ramrodder? Oh, Eddie James, aka Edward James Forsyth. So I was like, okay, this tracks that he edited his own film that he directed and wrote and all this stuff. So the Ramrodder is really him kind of all over. I mean, he worked with a lot of the same people that he worked with on lots of other stuff, like the art director Bud Costello. He worked with Roger Jim Gentry and other things. He partnered with Marlon Proctor and did several films for him. So yeah, I don't know how he got to Canada for Elliot Boy, which came out as Caged Men. I think here it's more known as Caged Men. And I know I have that Blu-ray, and I think there's an interview with an actor. Yeah, I should have checked that. I don't know where that DVD is now, actually, because after that, I don't know if anyone can even get it anymore, because now the Code Red's not around. We have to keep hoping that like Vinegar Syndrome will step up to reissue the stuff because as they've been doing for a lot of that stuff, or Severin has been doing some of those things too. But
yeah, that Code Red it's very weird. It's hosted by like Maria Kanellis, who's like a pro wrestling manager.
Well, Bill Olsen was in love with these wrestling girls, so he got Katarina, and then he got Maria, and then I remember I've talked about it before. I used to get daily phone calls from the Olsen brothers. I'm not even kidding. Daily phone calls that would last hours. And so I was really very aware of and involved with the beginning of Code Red, when it was just these two crazy brothers that were buying and selling expensive VHS on Amazon. And that's kind of what the genesis was. So they wanted Caged Men, and they were like, well, because Bill had a thing. If it was something that was like gay, he wanted to put it out because he wanted fanboys to have to buy something gay. Or if it was a blaxploitation film, he wanted to put it out because he wanted to put it out and skirt with ideas of racism in the extras. And like, he was a very problematic, crazy guy. I mean, he would call and leave me crazy voicemails. But Caged Men, he was like, what do you think? And they sent me like a burned DVD-R copy of it to get my thoughts on it. And I said, it's very well made. Yeah, definitely. I think you should put this out. And I think I tried to get them some extras for that, but didn't end up. I think they only got the one actor on their own. Yeah, anyway, my Code Red stories, I should write a book. And Walt, not at all. Walt was totally normal. Bill was totally insane. Because Walt was Scorpion, and then Bill was Code Red, and they were night and day, absolute night and day. But I love both of them. I miss them. They're both really nuts, but I miss them in my life in a weird way.
All right, I'm gonna have to go back and watch that then. Now that you confirmed that is the same Ed Forsyth. I had started it and I'm like, I don't know if this is him, and I have other things I need to watch, so I'm gonna put this on the back burner. So I'm gonna go back and watch
I can tell you don't need to bother with Super Chick. Super Chick is
I already watched
pretty much it's unwatchable. I really hate Super Chick. The only interesting thing with that is that it's so strange that Ed Forsyth did that with Joyce Jameson, who later became like an astrologer and all this stuff. And then Robert Aiken is in this, and he did the exact same thing, where he became like this astrologer and this new age, spirituality author and things. So it's interesting that he works with a lot of people with interesting philosophies, including the Manson people in this too. So it's a very weird through line in his cast. But
Super Chick, I
hated Super Chick.
It has less plot than Ramrodder, but it is
way less plot. I think they were making it up as they went along.
It's very much
there's that long candy samples thing where it's basically her getting dressed after a sex scene, and the camera's just running, and they're ad-libbing, and she's putting her clothes on, and I'm just like, why is this still going? What is this? It all just feels very improv. I think Ushi's barely in it.
Yeah, she's barely in it.
I got it for Ushi, and I have it for Ushi, but it's just kind of like, God. It was day work for her, and I hope she got paid well for this piece of garbage. But
yeah, at the end, I was just like, I wish Ushi was the lead in this. This would be so much more interesting.
Oh, can you imagine? That would have been great.
Like a Jane Bond character, that would have been awesome.
I think that's a huge mistake that nobody ever did that.
Yeah, can't you picture it?
I can, except the problem is I think super agents or secret agents are supposed to be kind of like incognito, I guess, but she is so bombastic. She could never be incognito. So it's kind of like Kathy Williams could possibly be a good secret agent, because like I love her, but I could see how people may potentially not be able to pick her out of a lineup, but
yeah. So we'll talk about her.
I do love her.
We'll talk about her in a minute too. Let's talk about Dave Friedman's involvement here. You know, he's not listed in the credits.
Right.
Yeah. So how did he get involved with this?
I think he said in an interview that this was a pickup, and that I think, and which is interesting because I think it took a considerable amount of time for it to be picked up and released, because it came out in January 1969, I believe. Catherine Scher remembers that she met Bobby Beausoleil on the set, and it was late 1967, early 1968. So it took like a year for this thing to gestate and get edited and all of that stuff, and for Dave to get involved and pick it up. It's kind of similar to like A Sweet Sickness, where that was a pickup, and I think Brick Dollhouse, where he kind of had to swoop in and kind of save the day with that one too. And it makes me wonder how much saving he had to do, because if Forsyth edited this, I'm not sure if he just couldn't sell it or wasn't that aware of the exploitation market at that point, because it was an early Van Gilder thing. I think it was the first Van Gilder movie he made, and then he did Bang Bang Gang and Hollywood Babylon, or his other two Van Gilder movies. And Bang Bang Gang was barely released too. That was re-edited into The Velvet Edge, which was a hardcore porn movie, and that was used as like flashbacks or whatever. And Hollywood Babylon, I think, that wasn't released very well either. So I think this was the best released Van Gilder, the sexploitation films that he made as Van Gilder. This one was released the best because Dave knew what he was doing.
Van Gilder being his pseudonym, right?
Yes, which I always wondered about that. And it makes me wonder then, like, who Gene Van Heeren was, because he did House Near the Prado, which was I think it's another sexploitation Western that's kind of missing, or parts are available, but the whole movie isn't. But yeah, Van Gilder was I think it only surfaced after Forsyth died that he was Van Gilder. I don't think it was that well known that he was the same guy.
I kind of wish they would have went with Dave's original title, which was Do It in the Dust.
I thought that was the title that they shot this movie under, and then he called it the Ramrodder.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Because the Ramrodder is such a great title, and it totally tracks that would be, because Dave knows titles. The Archie Blows title for a great title for a terrible movie. So the Ramrodder is great because it immediately makes you think of like this guy that's obviously like going to Pound Town with these women, right? Exactly, which is not really the case in this movie.
Yeah, I had it mixed up because Friedman always does the alliteration, so it's just like Do It in the Dust. You know, it's not the double D's. It's just
that's true.
It's a very Friedman kind of thing.
But that title also, there's something about the Ramrodder that makes it feel more epic, because it's very like the Ramrodder.
Yes.
And like Do It in the Dust also makes it kind of sound like it could be spoofy, or it sounds cheaper. So
you're right,
the Ramrodder is such a good title. And I think I had high expectations when I first saw it. And I remember not liking it the first time I saw it, because I kind of raked it over the coals when I reviewed it for DVD Drive-In. And then I rewatched it last year when I was doing my big Friedman rewatch. And I was like, Casey, what the fuck was wrong with you? This movie is so much fun, and it's well done. Like, Bob Maxwell's photography is amazing. Kathy Williams is great in it. Like, it just works for me from start to finish. And especially considering how bad a lot of these Nudie Westerns are, this one is really solid, all things considered.
Yeah, it's solid. And in that, Alex provided us with a little clip from a little quote from Dave, and he said the picture did really well. Like, it made good money. So it must have
that
hit
advertising
right at the right
campaign
time.
is really fantastic. Yeah, I think so. And I think it came out like the year, I'm trying to think of the release schedule in terms of like Scavengers, Hotspur, and Ramrodder. Ramrodder is the least serious of those three. I mean, it's not hilarious, but it's also nowhere near as dark and nasty as Scavengers and Hotspur, I don't think.
Yeah,
but
agree.
yeah, it's interesting that there was this little mode of sexploitation westerns. I know Brand of Shame might have been the first, and there's nowhere to go but up from that piece of shit. So I think, it's kind of like, okay, there's something here. Let's work on this. And then you get stuff like Scavengers, Hotspur, Ramrodder.
Something's poking me. It's your belt buckle.
You mentioned Bob Maxwell, photographer.
Yes.
Is there anything else we know about what?
He died very young. He died well before anybody could really interview him. I've never found an interview with him, but he photographed a lot of stuff. He photographed stuff for everybody, and his wife Nora was typically on sets as well. So Robert and Nora were. Now I'm not gonna. I wouldn't know if they were a package deal, but they typically, if you saw Robert Maxwell or Bob Maxwell on the credits, you would typically see like Nora doing like makeup or assistant to the director or something like so. And they both, I think, died, well before anybody try to put the dots together of like, oh, there's a really interesting career here. Let's have some conversations about that. He also shot hardcore. He did really good hardcore work for Bob Chin and Anthony Spinelli. Yeah, anytime I started seeing a movie for the first time and he said Bob Maxwell in the credits, I'm like, okay, this is going to look good. Like, he knew what he was doing. And in this one, especially, like, a lot of those low-angle shots, like, of these women towering over the camera. Like, and he did that a lot, actually.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that.
Several other films. Yeah, it wasn't really a trademark, but I think he knew that if it was something that was going to make the movie look better or give it a certain sense of style, that he was going to do it. And so the movies that he shot always looked more expensive than they were. And really good use of color too. Like, I know we work with John Hayes a lot. Yeah, I can't say enough about him, and I wish we knew more about him. I think he and Nora are kind of this unsung couple in sexploitation, exploitation, and adult movies, and I'd really love to know more about them.
Yeah, those low angle shots remind me of, going through our previous Rotzler kick. It's like kind of psychedelic style, like you'd see it like, we're going to film a go-go dancing routine. That's kind of the angle you would go for. But it's interesting to see it like in a Western context.
Right. Yeah, it is kind of like, how can we work this into this? Let's make up this weird native dance that she has to do after getting her body painted, which is also it's very weird kind of counterculture-y stuff that in this throwback Western. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it always looks good. That was the thing when I rewatched it. I was like, I can't believe I didn't like this, because even when it doesn't always work with the story, which isn't, I think the story works most of the time, but it still looks really good. And it's shot almost entirely outdoors and looks really good. There's only a few indoor scenes in the whole movie.
Yeah, there's just a few, like in the cabin scenes. Well, let's segue then into like where this was shot. Because like you said, there's been rumors that this was a Spahn Ranch shot film.
Yeah, I don't know where those came from. I don't think it is either. I think that that's been conflated with the fact that two Manson family members are in the film. And they think that they were in the film because the film was shot on a Spahn Ranch and they just grabbed them off the ranch. And that's just not the case.
The timeline I saw that they weren't even in the family. Yeah.
No, they didn't know each other. They met on the set of the film. And then lived together with Leslie Van Houten, and then they all went to Spahn Ranch around the same time after shooting of this. It was like late '69, I think, fall '69, I believe. Yeah, it doesn't look like Spahn Ranch to me.
Catherine's role is a lot smaller. I was telling Casey, like she doesn't even get a close up, but you can it's definitely her.
Not
and really. Bobby's he's got speaking role. He's got a speaking part. He's got a pretty big moment at the end of the movie.
He looks great. Like you get like he.
That's why his name is Cupid.
Yeah, I mean, he looks great. I get why women fell in love with him. He has these steely blue eyes. Like, he has real screen presence, and it's just kind of like, damn, if you just gone in a different direction, you didn't need to go in this direction. Like, you could have gone the Robert Aiken direction and connected with Gary Graver and started writing movies and done all this other stuff. But I think when you look that good, the attention you get is potentially corruptive, and I think that's what happened. Where it's but he's really good in this. The only thing that when I rewatched it, I was full disclosure about the Manson stuff. In middle school, my favorite book was Helter Skelter. We're talking like 7th grade. I read Helter Skelter like 3 times. Obviously, cause of concern for my parents and the schools that I was reading Helter Skelter, because I found the story so fascinating. So, like, I knew all these names like the back of my hand. Like, it's really crazy. So going back into that while researching for this, I was like, oh, right, this person. So I went back down the rabbit hole again. And I was like, God, what the hell was wrong with this? That I was so obsessed with this. I mean, I remember spending a fortune for the Manson VHS, which is tough to get a hold of now.
It's online,
but it's interesting because oh, good, okay, because a lot of the footage in that was shot, I think, 1969. It was shot like years before the doc came out for some other project. Yeah, it was like after Ramrodder was done. So when you're seeing Catherine Scher in that, there's footage of her like right after she got to Spahn Ranch and joined the family. Interesting. Bobby, I think, was in prison. Oh, actually, yeah, Bobby was in prison at the time all that footage was shot, so he's not in the movie.
Yeah, he's not in it.
Yeah,
but he's talked about.
Right. Well, yeah, because after he killed Gary Hindman, and that's why the whole murder with the knife it just reminded me. Oh, right, he stabbed this guy to death with a sword, and it's very dark and a weird connection to make when you realize, oh, this guy is in prison for life and keeps getting denied parole for a murder similar to this. Yeah.
So in this movie, at the very end, he castrates the bandit.
Right.
The
guy who started this whole thing.
Very gory sequence.
It is. Can you imagine you've just seen all these hot, naughty, hot, beautiful babes, and all of a sudden, before you leave the theater, you have to watch a castration.
Yeah. Well, I shouldn't say it's gory, but it's like the look on the guy's face is so horrific. It's just like, that's how the
implications are definitely strong enough because you have good performances that sell it. I mean, it looks way more brutal than it is. It's but it's a very memorable ending.
The Spahn Ranch thing, I'd heard that Dave Friedman had said that it was shot at Spahn Ranch. I have read that as well. I don't know the source.
I don't know where Dave heard that either, because Dave wasn't involved with production. So I don't know if he would even know that. It is one of those things, like, I've read interviews with people that have shot on Spahn Ranch, like Sam Sherman shot stuff there with Al Adamson. I think Greg Corrito shot something there. It was a Heart on the Trail, maybe. In 1971, so it was like after the Manson murders. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where, like, exploitation producers were very quick to cash in on the notoriety of Spahn Ranch. So that's like when Satan Sadist came out. They were quick to promote that as being shot. Like, I think there's stuff that inaccurately says shot on the site of the infamous Tate murders. And like, well, it didn't happen at the ranch, but the people who did it were living there at the time. And Female Bunch, I think, same thing, where it's, I think it was promoted that way. So it's kind of ghoulish, but you also kind of get it, where it's like, you got to sell a movie some way. And if people were so obsessed with that story, that was, that was a way to get more people into theaters to see where these people were living when they committed these murders.
Plus, I think it was cheap. It was cheap to shoot there.
Absolutely. Well, because George was like blind and destitute. He was basically being controlled by this family just the same way, because I don't think he knew how many people were living on that ranch at one time. And I mean, and Manson would ply him with women. So these women kept, including underage girls. Like there were like 14, 15-year-old girls in the family that they were used for these favors. Very horrible, sordid story. But yeah, like he was taken care of. He didn't know what was happening. So you could just show up. I imagine it would be very easy to show up to Spahn Ranch and just set up shop. Tell him, remember you gave us permission to shoot here, and he would just say, "Oh, right, okay."
Yeah, it does
I don't
like
think there was any.
Situation.
I don't know if there was any like caretaker of the property or anything. It might have just been him. Yeah, because when they left, it was done. It was a done deal. It was demolished very quickly after they all vacated.
Yeah, what I think the truth is regarding Spahn Ranch and Ramrodder is I think that it was shot in Topanga Canyon close by, but I don't think it was shot at the ranch. That's my take on it based on what little research I've done on it. I think it was shot like, in the rivers and lakes of Topanga Canyon, but not at the actual ranch.
Right.
So
right. And that's kind of interesting because if you've seen Manson, you've seen a lot of footage of the ranch. And like you've seen, for example, there's footage in Manson of like the Manson girls going skinny dipping in like a lake or a pond or whatever. And it doesn't look like the lush greenery of a similar scene of the topless women skinny dipping in that. So I'm not saying that it's not possible there was a nicer pond location on Spahn Ranch, but I think that theory makes more sense to me that it was shot around the Topanga Canyon area. I mean, because especially a lot of sexploitation people were already shooting there. It was like well-trod territory.
Yeah, it's just a hop and a skip from LA, so why not?
Right. Yeah. I think Henning Schellerup shot a bunch of stuff up there too, like the Black Bunch, and I think Convicts Women was shot there too.
Well, let's talk about some of the other cast members in this now that we got those Manson freaks out of the way.
I know. Well, and it's interesting. Well, actually, there's one more thing about the Manson thing. Like, Catherine's interesting. She actually has dialogue in this. For the longest time, I thought she was just some random woman in the tribe that got raped and murdered, and then I rewatched it and I was like, oh, she's actually like the best friend of Kathy Williams. Essentially, she's introduced as like, also the daughter of the chief of the tribe. So it's chief, it's kind of a big deal. Well, and something else that I completely forgot was that apparently she recorded a single in 1966 that came out as like Charity Shane, and it's on YouTube. Not particularly good, but it's interesting because I think there's so many musical connections to the people in the Manson family. Like Bobby Beausoleil was a composer, and his soundtrack for Lucifer Rising is absolutely incredible for the Kenneth Anger film. And then Catherine Sher was a singer, and there's that collection of recordings, The Manson Family Sings, which is all these recordings of them singing songs, which is actually very well done, and the vocals are very good. So, it's a little dark to listen to, but it just makes you think, God, if you'd actually just put more of your energy into this instead of starting a race war and trying to control people's minds and, corrupting young people who had no direction.
Yeah, even Paul Watkins, Paul Watkins in the family. He did the soundtrack for that Manson documentary. That
soundtrack for Manson is so good, and I've wanted it reissued for so many years. That soundtrack is amazing. And, he passed away, a couple of years ago, I think, because he got very sick.
He had lung cancer, I think.
Yeah, so he passed away.
His daughter is a writer now. I don't know if you've seen her stuff. She does some...
No, I haven't. Oh, interesting.
Go down that rabbit hole. It's a little interesting.
I know. It's like when we're done, I'm going to have to do that too because you posted a clip of him, and I was like, oh, I remember he was so sweet and gave really good interviews, and the music is good. I was like, it was almost like he was a substitute Bobby after Bobby left because he's very similar, like good looking, long hair.
Yeah, they both have
dreamy,
kind of similar face. Yeah, for sure.
Right, and they're both composers, which is wild. Yep. Yeah, so it's just I don't know. I don't know. I'm kind of hoping Bobby gets paroled at some point. He was just recommended for parole for like the 30th time, January of this year. And I think it's time. He was convicted of one murder, which was the Gary Hinman murder. He was 20 years old when he did that. Not even 21 yet, I think. So if Leslie Van Houten can get paroled, I think he can get paroled. I don't think they all should be, but Bobby, I think it's time.
Menoweth says we must live by white men's law, and let us live by it. An eye for an eye.
Let's talk about Mr. Jim Gentry.
Jim Gentry, Roger Gentry.
Guy, huh?
Very interesting guy. And unfortunately, another one who died before anybody could really talk to him about this stuff. Very interesting guy.
This is a pretty early film for him, right?
Yes, because I think he fell in with Lee Frost, because he was in a lot of Lee Frost stuff. And it's interesting that I think he directed some other stuff too, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't he direct something?
Well, I see a One Direction.
Yes, that terrible
Sleazy
piece of shit
Rider.
called Sleazy Rider. Yes, not good. Yeah, it's not good.
Great title, though.
But very good title. But I think he was someone who I think started acting in these films because he was in Hollywood. Another one of these guys, what's his face, Sebastian Gregory and Steve Vincent, they were in Hollywood. They were working actors, getting bit parts in TV and in like major films. Are like, well, I want to work. And so they just kind of stumbled their way into this exploitation world because this world in California had all these connections to Hollywood anyway. And I think once he got on the set, he was like, oh, this is like, I think he got bit by some kind of bug or something because he ended up doing a lot of like assistant directing or like production managing and things. Like he was really more involved with the productions than just showing up and acting and then leaving. So it really is Marlon Proctor very much the same way. And actually I tend to confuse the two. They don't even look that similar, but around the same time, they're both doing the same kind of thing, which is acting and then doing production work on the crew as well. And I think Jim was involved with another Forsyth movie, I believe. Yeah, he did The Bang Bang Gang, which was the follow-up to this, which was actually another period sexploitation film set in the 30s. It's kind of like a Bonnie and Clyde. Actually, it's kind of like Some Like It Hot without the drag. I really like it. The Velvet Edge repurposed it, which was like a much later 70s hardcore film. If you watch it, you've seen most of the Bang Bang Gang. Like the hardcore takes up very little time. A lot of it is the softcore Bang Bang Gang. But
I saw he's in another
Gentry,
Western, like a small role in Fandango, which I haven't seen yet.
Oh yeah, Fandango.
Think highly of
I
that
don't
one.
care for that.
Yeah.
John Hayes,
but
was hit or miss.
John Hayes, so I'm like,
that was a miss. It's worth seeing. I mean, if you especially if you're in the Nudie Western mode, it's worth seeing. It's just kind of interesting because it came after all the, like, in my opinion, all the good Nudie Westerns. Like, the good Nudie Westerns were like a 10-month period, apparently, because it was Scavengers, Hotspur, and this one, the Ramrodder. And Fandango, I think, is late period. I don't remember liking it that much. I think what doesn't work for me as well is because there aren't a lot of really memorable women in it. Sean Devereaux was in it, and she had like a little tiny blink and you'll miss it part in 7 minutes. So she had like the Russ Meyer stamp of approval, and I think that's why she was. I know when they tried to reissue Fandango, they were like, this Russ Meyer starlet. I was like, well, I guess. She's not very memorable. She's one of the least memorable Russ Meyer girls, but
yeah, looking at the cast list again, there's not really big name women in it.
No,
but there's Sebastian Gregory, so I need to see it.
Yes, exactly. Well, it's one of these sexploitation movies. Actually, it is similar in that way to like The Scavengers. There's too many men. It's like almost all men. It's a very testosterone-driven sexploitation movie, which honestly, that's not my jam for sexploitation movies. Like I may be gay, but I'm there for the women, and I would think that the heterosexual audience would be also. So it's like, if it's like a big sausage fest, I don't want to hang out with dudes shooting the shit and drinking and talking about how they want to have sex with women. I'd rather see them have sex with women. Give me the women.
Yeah. I'm trying to see what else
I remember Fandango is similar to that, and it's like, where are the women?
What are his other biggest roles? I know
Tale of the Dean's Wife, I think, is probably his biggest, and that one is absolutely incredible. I think that's one that not a lot of people know about. He plays, he is the dean, and Christine Murray, aka Luann Roberts, is his wife, and a bunch of college radicals, led by the lover of his wife, come and I think they hold him hostage in his home, and it's very similar to RPM with Anthony Quinn, but with way more sex. And Roger, I think that's probably his biggest major lead role I can think of outside of this. And I know he's in several other things with Marsha Jordan. I think he's in Marsha the Erotic Housewife.
Yeah.
And some other things. But yeah, I mean, he always hid behind the Jim Gentry thing. But Roger Gentry, was his real name. And he used that on his... I would think he would change his last name too to kind of stay more incognito, but...
Well, I'm glad he didn't, because we have that connection.
Yes, I think it made it easier after he died to add it, to correct everything on IMDb and just, make sure that it was all under one page.
But yeah, he's in that Invitation to Ruin movie from who knows what the year is, but which also has Kathy Williams and Julia Blackburn.
And Julia Blackburn.
Part in that.
Yeah.
So that's
which is why I thought maybe Kurt Richter... I don't know why I always think Invitation to Ruin is a Cressy movie, because it feels like a Cressy movie, but it's not a Cressy movie. And Kurt Richter sounds like it could be a Cressy pseudonym, but I think it's been confirmed that it is not. But it's interesting. I guess that Julia and Kathy and maybe Jim had similar agents at that time.
Okay, that makes sense.
Is that all there is in life for us, Kachina? To become squaws, with our bodies always heavy with child? I do not believe that is all the gods meant for us. Do not talk this way. You will anger the very gods that you speak of.
Let's talk about Kathy. She's an interesting face that pops up if you watch enough sexploitation. But I, laying my cards on the table here, I know you and Alex have talked about how you think she's underappreciated, or at least under talked about. I kind of see why. To me, I think she's kind of bland, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it is. I think the reason why she's special to me. And, the thing is, I think she appears in a lot of movies that aren't particularly great and don't really make a lot of good use of her, like the Rotsler stuff and the Don Davis stuff. She's kind of window dressing. And then you have something like this, where I think she's beautiful in this. I think what stands out for her, for me, is that she's not, it's going to sound terrible if Kathy's listening, but I don't think she's gorgeous. I think there's something very accessible about her. I think there's something very girl next door about her. I think she has a very good figure. The photographs very well. And I also am very taken with her accent. I think I said in the show notes, I came across a pictorial under another name where it said she was from St. Paul, Minnesota. And I laughed out loud. I was like, that accent is not from Minnesota. That accent is from Boston or New York. It's a Northeastern accent. Or even anywhere Massachusetts, And I'd love to know more about her. I think her most mainstream work is probably The Babysitter, because that was the Crown International movie. And that's where she plays... I think she's the daughter of a judge that's being blackmailed for having lesbian sex with Sherry Jackson. Okay. And her accent really comes out in that. It's a very thick, pronounced accent. She keeps it under control in Ramrodder. You can't really hear it in Ramrodder. I think maybe Ed Forsyth took some more takes, or told her, you're an Indian maiden and you can't sound like you're from Boston. So
and she's speaking in that stilted manner, so
very
it's hard
halting. Yes.
Hear anything resembling an accent. Yeah.
Right. But I don't know. She's definitely... I understand her cult because I'm a member of that cult, but I could also understand why she's not somebody that I could rave about and it would be easily understood. It's not like an Ushi where you get it, or like a Barbara Mills where you kind of get it. Yeah. I can't say Kathy Williams is a great actress. I can't say she was a stunning screen beauty. There's just something about her being... this girl next door who just wandered into nudie films and photography because she had a good figure, and then left when it looked like it was going to get hardcore. And she worked a lot with Rotsler too, so I like to think that she was another one of Rotsler's girls that had a good attitude and got along with him. Yeah, because I don't think he would have cast her in so much stuff if he didn't like her, regardless of whether she looked good nude or not. I think because he kept working with her.
Mm-hmm. Street of a Thousand Pleasures is kind of my like litmus test for Rotsler Girl or not. You know, if you're in that, you were probably hanging out at Rotsler's house and he photographed you for that film.
Yeah, I just put that on recently, and I was like, am I gonna have to? I tried to sit through it, and I was like, I'm not in the mood. I'll come back to it. But yeah, you can see the shifts in the film stock where you can tell there's stuff he shot years before. For God knows what, some random project that didn't happen, and then he shoved it into this. And I'd never noticed that before. I don't know how my eye was so untrained at the first time I saw that movie. But yeah, you can definitely tell.
Yeah, I will say for Kathy, I did really like her in Office Lovin', where she plays like the secretary who's kind of trying to climb the ladder through having sex with all these members of this family. That owns this company. That's a pretty good role for her. Datamate, yeah. In that movie, it's there's a kind of a sly humor to it, and I think that she does. I don't know if she's intentionally doing good with that humor, or if she's just such an untrained actress that somehow it works. The humor works with it. I think it might be both. I don't know. Maybe it's a little. It might be both. Because sometimes, like, films like that, it kind of works if you have that sense of humor like Apostolov has for his films. You kind of don't want somebody who is, like, necessarily a trained actress who would be in on the joke. Like, part of the joke is the fact that it's somebody who wouldn't deliver the lines like a trained comedian. It's kind of like, well, maybe you're just naturally funny the way you're delivering this dialogue. There's several actresses I could think of in adult and softcore that are kind of like that. I think a lot of Russ Meyer's women are like that, actually. Yeah. I think because he was able to cut so quickly around them, I think you get the impression that they're better actresses and funnier than they actually would be if you just watched a differently edited and shot film. Yeah, exactly. He did those women big favors. Edie Williams specifically, because if you've seen anything Edie Williams did other than Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, she was god-awful. You wouldn't know it from the way Russ shaped that performance. But the Office Lovin' is like, I need to go watch it again now that I've seen more of her stuff. Because now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, it's kind of like Babyface from 1933, where she's like, effing her way up the corporate ladder. Yes, it is. Kind of, it's so funny. So now I'm like, man, maybe I'm underappreciating Kathy. Maybe she really was the Stanwyck of her sexploitation era. My God. I wouldn't go that far. I think that might have been, well, I don't know who that was. That might have been Barbara Mills. Actually, or Gretchen. Could have been either one of them. I think Apostolov stuff is, we should do an Apostolov movie at some point. And all of that stuff is with Vinegar Syndrome, and they haven't released anything except for Fugitive Girls. So I need to get back on to trying to get them to put out a box just to get them out there and nice and restored, because there's a lot of good stuff in there. And he always worked with the best women of the industry at that time. Yeah. So. Well, Orgy of the Dead is the other one, right? The other but I don't think they got that from him. They got that... maybe they did get that from him, because Rhino's rights expired. Yeah, I think those were just those two Apostolovs. But we need more, especially, like Motel Confidential is fun. College Girls is fun. I watched that. Yeah, I like Class Reunion. I love Dropout Wife. I haven't seen Wrong Way yet. Like Hot Ice is terrible. But Beach Bunnies is fun. Like, there's a lot of good stuff in his catalog. I just think at this point it's just impossible to see a lot of it, which is a bummer.
Sometimes I believe you think more of those savages than you do of me.
You were pretty savage yourself last night, honey.
So, Julia Blackburn also has a small part in this. I don't know. In a red wig for some reason. Yeah. I don't know why she's in a red wig, except to maybe set her apart from the other blonde later. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So you have two major blondes in wigs in this movie. You have Marsha Jordan in a terrible black braided wig, and then you have Julia Blackburn in this flaming, unnatural red wig. Yeah. And I don't know what they were thinking, except maybe just to make sure that everyone was distinguishable and you wouldn't, Yeah. But, and she's like she's the modern girlfriend, so, right? Yes. Well, I shouldn't say modern, but she's like the stay-at-home housewife, house girl, you know,
basically,
whatever.
yeah, she's I don't know, like the settler wife.
So she has time to dye her hair.
I guess. So yeah, I just like, this is the most unnatural thing, and it's weird because I'm so used to seeing her as a blonde.
I know.
So when I watched it, I was like, wait, are we sure this is Julia Blackburn? But I, unfortunately, not to sound like a pervert, but I can identify a lot of these actresses by their breasts, because
by their bust, yeah.
A lot of them are very distinctive. So I'm good with faces, breasts, and certain genitals. But okay. Yeah, so I don't need to necessarily see the faces to know who they are. But I was like, oh, this is Julia Blackburn, because it reminded me of Invitation to Ruin. Actually, I said, oh, okay, this is the same figure that I remember from Invitation to Ruin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and Julia has a notable scene with Kathy where they have a little knife fight.
That's great.
Over their man. Yeah. Which
is wild because Kathy doesn't want the man.
No.
She's there to warn him. It's just kind of one of those situations.
We do not fight rolling in dirt like village dogs. Fight her in a Corona.
I'll fight her anyway.
At least you will be able to die with dignity.
I mean, that's kind of the sad thing about this movie. It's kind of like Kathy did all of this and then is kind of a pariah. Like she doesn't end the movie well. Like she doesn't get the man. She's whipped for losing her virginity and then inducted into lesbianism by Marsha Jordan.
I had my read of that was like the whipping, she seemed to like it, right? At the end, she learned to love it, and this was like her character turn.
I mean, made it sound way worse now.
I know.
No, I didn't get that impression.
I got the impression that this was like a happy ending for her.
I did get that impression. Well, yeah, she's going to be stuck with Robert Aiken, who beat the shit out of her. I don't mean Robert Aiken, very attractive guy, so I guess it's a win. But you know,
that dude was like a little tank. Yeah, that dude was built.
Robert Aiken.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he was great in Vixen and Cherry, Harry, and Raquel. So yeah, like that's another guy, like stunning movie star looks. Like, what are you doing here? What are you doing in this genre? You could be a movie star.
Yeah, he's like introduced as like this kind of sadistic Indian brave, and it's so funny because when he's introduced, like he's carrying that whip, and when I first saw this, I'm like, oh, okay, they're not going to introduce this whip without using it at some point.
Exactly.
Near the end.
Right.
And then he busts it out.
And that's why but that's why it's also so easy to think that Friedman was involved with production, because Friedman would be like, where's the whipping scene? We have to have the whipping scene. And it's very similar to the whipping scene in Brand of Shame, but I think it's much better done.
At first, there was only the hot bite of the lash. Then its fire began to spread through me. And I felt no pain. Only a need. Hunger. I was raising to meet each blow.
Listen, I don't have enough bad things to say about Brand of Shame. It's so terrible. Yeah. Don't watch Brand of Shame, everybody. It's really appalling. It's one of Friedman's worst movies.
Yeah, leave it for the end of your Nudie Western run through. Right. Just to see how bad they can get, for sure.
Yeah, this is kind of everything that Brand of Shame should have been. Because it really brings that Old West flair, that Old West feeling to life much more vividly. I think the cast is better. I think the script is better. It's just better in every way. It's shot better, acted better. Yeah, it's just better. It makes me wonder if Friedman really wanted this because maybe Brand of Shame, he had to reissue it as New Django. So I don't know if maybe Brand of Shame wasn't as successful. Or maybe because it was successful and he wanted another Western, he was like, well, this is cheaper than having to make one. I'll just buy this one.
Yeah. Yeah, and he bemoaned the fact that he didn't buy it out completely because I guess it made so much money. He was like, God damn.
Right.
Just
because it was a 50-50 split, I think.
Yeah.
Because Forsyth wanted some money in. And that's a smart thing that Forsyth did because, and he's also lucky he was dealing with Friedman, who was much more honest and forthcoming with that than Novak would have been, or even Crown International had a history of not being honest either. So he picked the right guy to go to with this movie for sure.
I wonder if he used some of that money in future films or what he did with that. Because he didn't make that many others. Like we said, he made that Canadian Caged Men film, but who knows?
Well, he might have taken that money and put it into Bang Bang Gang. Because Bang Bang Gang was like right after this. It was 1970. But I don't remember who distributed Bang Bang Gang. I think it was a smaller company, and it doesn't really have much of a footprint. Bang Bang Gang.
Yeah.
I know it came out on video, I think overseas. I don't think it came out on video here. And then the only way that I became aware of it, and a lot of other people became aware of it, is through that Velvet Edge movie, where I don't know who made that, and I don't know how they got the rights to include it, or if they just found a print and shaped a movie around some found movie that they had. That whole thing is a curiosity for sure.
So the Bang Bang Gang the original film does exist as it was shot.
It does, yes. But I think, it's only like on a VHS rip. I think it came out in like Australia maybe, or the UK. But it is available in English without subtitles. Like it's pretty not easy to get a hold of, but it's accessible.
It's out there, okay.
I'd love to see a nicer sort of version of that one. It's very well done. I really quite like it. And it kind of reminds me of like Fabulous Bastard from Chicago. It's not as... What's the word? It's not as ambitious as that film, which I don't really like that much. But it's similar in that it tries to... It's like this in that it brings that period feeling to life. Like there's vintage cars, vintage costumes. Like I think it's really well done. It's kind of...
Yeah, that stuff's not cheap.
Little movie.
Yeah, that costs money to get that stuff.
Yeah, right. So it's kind of one of those overlooked kind of prestige pictures from around that time, because when he had like these costume pictures and these period like stuff like Diamond Stud and Fabulous Bastard, it's kind of an overlooked one of these like prestige pictures, because I don't think it did that well.
Interesting. Yeah, it must have been that. It must have been where he put that money then. Yeah. Sounds like
and then Hollywood Babylon was 72 after Caged Men. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting he didn't do that much directing. I think his bread and butter was editing. I think he was mostly an editor. And based on his work here, he was a very good editor.
So Bang Bang Gang, not to be confused with Lucky Bang Bang from Barry Mahon.
No, God no. And not to be confused with Bang Bang the Mafia Gang, which is the Haji movie, which is really a lot of fun, a.k.a. The Melon Affair, I think. That one's really good too. But not to be confused with that one either.
Yes, The Melon Affair. That's on Cult Picks now, if you have a subscription to that service. They actually just put that out by Saw.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I remember when Something Weird put that out, I grabbed it immediately. And I still have that DVD-R. That one's a lot of fun. I really enjoy that one a lot. Because you get to see Haji having fun. And she's playing she's playing like a comedy character, which she never got to do. Yeah, I really recommend that one.
The funny thing is, the only way I know that is because I was queuing up Come One, Come All, that Sebastian Gregory film on Cult Picks, and it was playing The Melon Affair, and I was like, this is the wrong movie, so I emailed Rick over at Cult Picks, and he fixed it like right away for me.
Oh, good.
He's like, thanks for spotting that. So yeah, he fixed that issue.
Well, it sounds like they have so much. They have so much stuff in the catalog they're putting up. Bound to happen at some point. But that's really exciting.
Acapulco Uncensored again with Kathy Williams is in that.
Oh right, we talked about that right online. Where the best part is what's her face at the end. Yeah.
Yes, the cursing. I forget her name.
Kathy Williams in that, not good.
Just kind of a bedroom scene. Yeah, I don't know.
Right. Where she complains. That. Yeah, it's not good. What is her name again? Linda O'Brien.
Yes,
that's who it is. Yes. Linda O'Brien, stacked to hell, and she should have been in more movies. But I know she did a ton of magazine work for obvious reasons. But yeah, she's the best part of that movie for sure.
Motula, you will take Tawana to your teepee and give her the test.
Marsha Jordan we're running down the cast list here. She is another Indian,
Superstar.
Native American. She's kind of like the The medicine woman, wouldn't she say?
Sort of, yeah. Like, she basically plays that role because she is put in two positions where she has to, like, initiate Kathy Williams into two different things. Like, she has to paint her, so she does the dance, and then she initiates her into lesbianism or whatever. And it's, yeah, I mean, it's interesting that Marsha Jordan, and this is 1969, like, at this point, she was still headlining movies. So it's very interesting that she just has this tiny little role under this unflattering wig.
And again, like, doesn't get a close-up. It's just like, I had to squint. I'm like, is that... I see her in the credits. Is that right? Yeah. And she's covered up for a lot of it, too. So it's like you can't see her chest, which is, like you said, one of her most notable features. And it's like, what are you doing?
And you barely see her in the lesbian scene either. It's really...
Yeah, her head is below the frame during the lesbian
It's really...
scene.
It's like a Sarno scene where it's focused almost exclusively on Kathy. You don't see anything else. And they misspell her name in the credits. So it's kind of like, what are we doing here? Yeah. She's definitely done better work. I'm a big Marsha Jordan fan. Also because she really seems like, we were talking about, like, sense of humor and being able to, like, work with comedy scripts and stuff like that. Marsha always felt like she was in on the joke. She knew that what she was doing was ridiculous and that she had a sense of camp to her, like, at all times. And I think one of my favorite quotes from Dave Friedman is discussing her is that, like, she was so beloved in the South in the drive-in circuit, and she would go do personal appearances, and some guy wanted to get his picture taken with her in an autograph, and he called her, like, a good old girl. And that was, like, Southern speak for, like, you're one of the guys, like, we love you. And it wasn't like an objectification thing. It wasn't like you're sexy, I want to bang you, whatever. Like, it was all, with all due respect, ma'am, you're a good old girl. Like, it was about her personality and her screen persona. And I think that's really impressive at that time when there really wasn't a star system. She kind of created that star system. And unfortunately, she died a couple years ago. I need to update IMDb. She died a while ago. But yeah, she married and retired onto a ranch and died, I think, at a ripe old age. She lived a long life.
That's good, at least.
Yeah, I need to update that on IMDb, actually.
So, did she retire to a ranch in the South, I wonder? Do you know where it was?
No, she was on a ranch in California. It was a ranch in California. And she was married a wealthy guy, and she had enough money as well from these films, and just lived her life on this ranch, as far as I can tell. And because I was trying to find her to see if by any miracle she was still alive and just old enough to talk. And she had died several years earlier. But it's not, like, official canon yet until I'm able to update IMDb with the public records information I found.
We talked about Robert Aiken a little bit, but do you have anything else on him?
Well, I needed to read his books, and he used to have a website, which is gone now, which was interesting. It had updated pictures of him, and he still looked great, still took really good care of himself. Yeah, I mean, I find it interesting that he was another guy who was like, well, there's only so much I want to do in terms of acting in this industry. So then he wrote Sandra, Making of a Woman for Gary Graver, and then he shows up in When She Was Bad for Gary Graver in a sex scene where he gets killed at the moment of climax, which is great. And then he came back years later and wrote this terrible thing called Moon and Scorpio for Gary Graver, which is absolutely abominable. But yeah, he became a writer, which is great. Unfortunately, it robbed us of a lot more chances to look at him because he's one of the best looking guys to ever make these kind of films. I think he knew his value and was like, I don't want to keep doing these. I want to do something else.
I guess we didn't really mention the connection also to Love Camp, which has 3 of these actors, right?
It does. You guess Kathy's in there, Robert's in there. Is Julia in Love Camp? No.
Maybe it was just
I think Jim Gentry's in there, isn't he? No, Jim is not. So it's just
Kathy
2.
And
it's Kathy
Bobby,
and Robert. Yeah.
And the Friedman connection, of course.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Of course.
That's what I'm thinking.
But that was, because that was 69 as well, like Ramrodder. So, the peak Kathy moment of her career, I think.
Yeah, quite a few of these actors were, like, 3-4 years in the business, and they were done, and they went off to other stuff, which is not unheard of in sexploitation. But to have I mean, I guess the biggest name would be Marsha Jordan, probably in Ramrodder.
Yeah,
and she has one of the smallest parts.
And she's last billed. I'm just like, wow. She's in Marsha. She's top bill as Marsha the Erotic Housewife this year. Like, what?
Yeah,
like, she's still a star.
Yeah.
Right. She's still a star. What are we doing here? But, and then it made me wonder if, like, maybe there was someone else cast and they knew she was available. And they knew that, and they knew she was good to go. And she probably was. You know, I think I've never heard a bad thing about Marsha Jordan from any of the people who work with her from that era. Yeah, she gives a really good interview in the book Cinema, which is from 72. Oh, no, I'm sorry, 74. And at that point, she was still making sex films 10 years after she started.
Yeah. Marsha never did hardcore, did she?
No, had no interest. Yeah. She was like Ushi in that she knew what her marketability was, and it was the fact that she looked good naked, and that's all she had to do, you know?
Yeah.
And she was kind of an early kind of like MILF figure, I think, because she was a little older when she started. I think she was mid to late 30s when she started, maybe.
Yeah, same with Kathy Williams. She never went into hardcore. I mean, she's in Rotzler's hardcore. She did what she wanted, but it's like old footage, just spliced. Yeah, in. It's not sex footage.
Right. Yeah, it just makes me wonder how much footage he shot of like these girls that would hang out at his house and where all that footage is. We talked about this last time, and it's just like the archive, his papers at the University of California don't have anything from his sex film. So I'm just like, where is that footage? Where are the scripts? Where is all that shit? Yeah.
Yeah. Rotzler, don't get us back on Rotzler again. We're gonna keep going.
Still so much we haven't talked about with him. But well, yeah. I mean that's something else that I keep thinking about, because we keep bumping into this where it's like, what happened to these people after? And the fact that there are so few institutions with talent releases makes it difficult to really trace people, even if they're alive. And that's the tough thing. Like Kathy Williams. She was in films as Kathleen Williams. I think that probably was her real name or something close to it, whether it was with a K or a C. The Babysitter, I think everyone in The Babysitter uses their real name because it's a pretty professional production.
Yeah.
I haven't actively tried looking for her just because it's a very common name.
Yeah, that would be hard
I need some more. I need some more clues before I dive into public records. And also like if I started with Kathy Williams in like Boston or Massachusetts or something, just because I know she's from the East, just based on her accent. So
yeah.
My heart is heavy with shame and sadness. We should lose all that we have gained by one foolish act of violence. Violence begets violence. If we've learned this lesson, then there is hope. If we have not, then there's no hope at all. Goodbye.
Well, let's touch on maybe a couple other like nudie westerns that we like. I know this came about because, I watched Ramrodder last week just on a whim. I think because it was hot. It was like the heat wave in the United States. I was like, I need to watch.
You didn't want to watch like, well, I was going to say, you don't want to watch a snowbound nudie cutie. I'm like, well, there aren't really any. Where Eve's on skis, there aren't really any. There aren't any winter based. The Snow Bunnies, you can watch the Apostle of Snow Bunnies, I guess.
I watched that last winter actually.
It's cute.
That one's ticked off.
It's one of those fun ones. Yeah.
So I watched Ramrodder, and then I was messaging Casey about it, and Casey liked it, So if Casey likes something, then he's going to be more willing to talk about it.
That's very true. Unless it's something that I hate with a passion, and then I'm like, I can rant about this as long as I need to. Love is a four-letter word. It's different because it was just a disappointment. A disappointment's worse than something that I really actually hate. So like Brand of Shame, if you want to talk about Brand of Shame, I got a lot to say, but it's not going to be good.
No. I think there's another Byron May movie we could watch or talk about that's not that.
Oh, for sure. Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But so I'm glad that we were able to touch on the Western genre this summer. like I said, I wanted to get one in this summer at some point, so I'm glad I kind of stumbled upon Ramrodder. So
I really love this one.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It like most sexploitation, there's filler stuff in here, and it is a less. I mean, there's a decent plot, but it is still a sex film. There are long sex scenes. That's what you're signing up for. So, prepare yourself. But on the other flip side, I think is like the Lee Frost movies. At least Hotspur, I think I prefer over Scavengers. Like those have,
I think so,
stronger stories. I think.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I agree. I think Hotspur is probably the best because it feels like, well, it's Lee Frost. I mean, he wanted to make an actual film, and it's kind of I mean, it's similar to something like The Animal and The Pickup, where it's like you can see that what he wanted to do outside of just making a sex film. I think The Scavengers isn't as much. Scavengers doesn't hit me like Hotspur does.
No, it doesn't. You can tell that they're aiming for something big with the plot of The Scavengers, with the Civil War setting and that whole thing, but it doesn't come together as well as the sort of tight melodrama of Hotspur does. Hotspur is like, for us, we can be a little jaded about like what's nasty or what's like dirty and grimy and sexploitation. But that one legitimately feels pretty sweaty and gross sometimes, especially when they're like in that little pressure cooker of that cabin. I don't want to say too much about it, but if you're looking for another nudie Western, I think start with the best and watch Hotspur.
Yeah.
Brand new
I agree. I think that is the best one. I need to pick up that Restoration, actually. That and the Scavengers. I need both. But I think Hotspur. I think I actually prefer Ramrodder to Scavengers. I think the reverse might have been true before, but I haven't revisited Scavengers in a while. I think I've rated it pretty highly, and I've immediately started to question all of my high ratings after I gave Brick Dollhouse and Sweet Sickness and Ramrodder bad ratings, and I revisited all of them, and I was like, oh, these are actually good. So I'm questioning everything in my
your high ratings are going down. Your low ratings are going
up. High
up.
ratings. Yeah, I'm like, why did I give this a 10? Jesus. Like Girl from SIN, I give it a 9. God, I don't know what I was thinking. Yeah, Scavengers, I think I may have given it a 9. It's definitely not a 9 in hindsight. And I think if I revisited it, I might even lower it lower than that. But Hotspur, I think, works because it's Lee Frost. I think that's the kind of the key to why it works. I would say the same about like Love Camp 7, where that film, but that I don't know. Hotspur, I feel like might be even nastier than Love Camp 7, just because Love Camp 7 has an element of camp to it, as distasteful as that sounds.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
And Hotspur really doesn't. Hotspur doesn't really have a sense of humor. It's very
like just
nihilistic. It's very similar to something like Soldier Blue, which you brought up before. It's one of those nasty, grisly westerns where you can feel the Hotspur might be. It's sort of like when the Wild Bunch came out in '69. It was like a new kind of western because it was
a revisionist
gory
western,
and violent. Yeah, and it's just like, no, it was really, the West is not something to lionize or be like, oh, the good old days. Like, no, this was grimy, gross, horrible, violent, disgusting times. And the Wild Bunch was kind of Hollywood doing it, and Hotspur was kind of like, why do we have these naked ladies running around the Old West? Like, this is brutal. These are brutal times. Because Lee Frost was not going to and Lee Frost has a good sense of humor, obviously, in other stuff, but Hotspur just feels like he's really trying to get something out of his system with that one.
Yeah, I'm always a little disappointed.
Him and Wes Bishop, because I think it was Wes Bishop, right? Yeah, it was another one he did with Wes Bishop, I think.
Yeah, Hotspur should be talked about a little bit more among general Western fans. I think, especially those
because it's a sex film.
60s,
right. I mean, it came out before like McCabe and Mrs. Miller, which I think is like that might be the ultimate revisionist Western because it's so not a Western. It really doesn't have any promises all the ingredients of a Western and delivers none of them. It doesn't even have a hero. Like Warren Beatty is not a hero in that movie, but I think it's something that we run into a lot, where there are films that are actually good films that are never going to be taken seriously because there's sex in them and because of the way they were marketed. So like Hotspur is marketed as a sex film first and foremost. And so it's never going to be seen as a Western. It's going to be seen as a sex film that is a Western, you know. It's kind of like The Pickup, which is a film noir, basically, but it's a sex film. So you're not going to have people talk about The Pickup as like a film noir crime film, which is what it really is. People are going to talk about it as a sex film. And it must have really got Lee Frost sometimes, because you know he put his heart into this stuff. And, I don't know. I think he was above it.
Hey, that's why he started drinking so heavy.
You know, I'm
half joking, but yeah.
But then he goes like mainstream with like Race with the Devil. Yeah, I think if he hadn't been, he had a lot of demons. I really think he should have had a bigger career.
You are like a Western fan generally, right? Would you say?
I'm a fan of certain directors because of the way that they handle the genre. Like, I love, obviously, John Ford. I love Bowditcher. I love Anthony Mann. Most of those major Western guys I like. I like Fritz Lang's Westerns. But, like, the classic Hollywood Western. George Stevens does good Westerns. But it's a mode that I think can get repetitive. And it's a lot of the same stories over and over. But unlike, and you could say the same thing about sexploitation. It's the same story over and over and over. The difference is the way that story is told, or the way it's acted, or the way it's produced. And I think a lot of Westerns, because we've talked about how cheap they are to make, a lot of them are very formulaic. And so it's tough for me to get that excited about going into a Western and watching it for the first time. For example, I've still never seen Unforgiven, like Clint Eastwood, Best Picture winner, just because I'm like, I'll see it at some point, but I've seen like the Leone Westerns, which I love. I enjoy spaghetti Westerns. I love Django. Yeah, Unforgiven, I'm just like, I haven't seen Tombstone. There's some major...
I think Tombstone was the very first Western I ever saw.
Really? Okay. Well, it sounds like you started with a good one, because I've heard it's great.
Yeah. I tell this story a lot to friends that Tombstone was the very first rated R movie I ever saw, like in the theater.
Oh, really?
With my dad. Damn. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and if you once you watch it, you'll be like, 9 or 10-year-old seeing this. That's pretty...
right.
I don't know about that. Legs getting blown off and shotgun blasts to the chest and stuff like that. Anyways, yeah.
I mean, but it's America. That's more acceptable than watching, women, the brothel part of the Westerns. Right, exactly. Right. Yes, exactly. I mean, I like Quick and the Dead, too, because that's very much not your typical Western, because it's a woman is the central figure. So and Hanny Calder is similar in that way. So I find the genre itself is too formulaic, but it's the way that different people approach it. And sexploitation is very similar. Like, let's be real. Most sexploitation is not good, but the ones that are good and really excel are the ones that are done by really interesting people and who are doing something interesting with it. And I guess you could say that about every genre. Musicals are the same way. War films are the same way. Like, comedies are very difficult to do. So... Yeah, I think genre itself is very difficult to work within.
I mean, as a film fan, I feel like, that's why I watch all of them, the bad ones, the good ones, because I feel like that's just gives you a broader, like, palette in understanding
I agree.
The genre and film as a whole. So...
Right, I agree.
But I will agree, Westerns for sure. I think... the Westerns are heavier in in being more repetitive than some other genres, but that's what audiences wanted. So it's like, that's what they gave to them, and they fed them for such a long time.
Right.
Funny enough, like my wife will watch like most stuff, but two things she won't watch: Westerns and Yakuza film. And anything like with Yakuza, she won't watch.
Yakuza, also very formulaic, but
Yeah, and I think there is a connection there. Like, she just sees, just another horse movie with
also both very testosterone-driven films where it's always typically men trying to outman each other. Yeah. And I find that incredibly boring. Unless there's some kind of camp to it or something, but... Yeah, I'm with your wife on that. I think those would probably be add war films to that, and those would be my bottom three genres. But it doesn't mean I'm avoiding them completely. It just means that they're at the bottom of my list. If I have a list of films to watch, then those three films would be like on the bottom of my list. Like, I've had the box sets of the Battles Without Honor and Humanity films.
Oh my god!
Since they came out. I have never watched them. They have sat here on my to-watch pile for years, and I still haven't watched them. And I'm just kind of like, so it's going to be someone rising up the Yakuza, killing people along the way, and then someone's going to try to take him out. I'm like, I can write it in my head. But
well, that and
I
like,
know they're
you need
good.
Yeah. You need to like take notes on those movies. Like, okay, this person's connected to this person. I think there's even like in the liner notes, I think there is like a family tree. It's like,
I'm like, what is this? Lord of the Rings? Jesus Christ. Yeah, I'm like, what is this? It's not Game of Thrones. Like, oh yeah, I need to keep track of all of this.
Kind of is.
Yeah, I was like, this is a lot. I have to do a lot of research for this. So, and also the subtitle. So I was like, I can have no distractions whatsoever. Yeah, I don't know. I think in terms of like, I like when sexploitation films try to do something different and they pick specific like genres to try that in. Like I love nudie cutie horror films like Kiss Me Quick or House on Bear Mountain and things like that. Nudie westerns though, nudie comedies are those are tough. But you know, nudie musicals, there aren't enough of them because it's tough. They like the audience going to see these films doesn't want to experience songs in between the naked ladies or watch a naked lady sing. They could care less. That's always a tough mix.
So back to the naughty westerns. It's like after, I mean, there's a few hardcore westerns in the 70s and even into the 80s, but you know, I don't think the subgenre lasted too long compared to some others. But yeah, I think we got a few gems, and there's a lot of rougher ones. But I don't know. It's just like if you're in the mood, you know, it's summer. And you want to watch a western, but you're in a sexploitation mood, there are options. Right. And
there are some good options.
Yeah. We've hopefully led you down the path of a few of the better ones, but definitely check out the not so good ones as well, just to compare and contrast.
That's true, because actually that is very true. I think that's something, if you don't suffer through some really terrible films, and I think it doesn't help you appreciate the good ones or even the above average ones. As well. Like the Ramrodder, for example, if you watch something like Revenge of the Virgins or Fandango or Brand of Shame, it's like, oh my god, this is terrible. And then you watch the Ramrodder, it's like, oh wait, you can do something good with this with a western in a sexploitation genre.
Beautiful to one. Your breasts are so round and firm. Your skin so soft. Your hips slim.
It feels strange to be touched like that. Is it part of the ritual?